Happy New Year and welcome back to Quiet RC. As usual, I am Rob. It's a little cold here in Indy, but today we're going to talk about my Super Hotshot build. It's a little Blockhead Motors tribute, and we'll see if lightning can strike twice. There's a little lightning bolt, that's why it's kind of a pun. Well, here we are with the Tamiya Super Hotshot 3, something like that. Really just a Hotshot 3. I mean, they gave you the number 3, so it must be a number 3. At any rate, obviously Blockhead Motors didn't make a Super Shot. However, I really liked the wild one that I did from Blockhead Motors and kind of my own interpretation of one of their liveries, and then expanded that into the Hotshot 2 Blockhead Motors edition. And this came up as possibly being available. I grabbed one. I think it was back in June I grabbed it and decided I would kind of keep that little motif going and do some of my own kind of continuation of my theme of the Blockhead theme, because I do kind of like their graphics, their lettering, things of that nature that are, I don't know, unique to them. So I made this unique to me. Let's get into kind of the actual build of the Super Shot. Now, obviously I've done a Hotshot 2 video. So if you want to take a look at that, that will be linked up here somewhere, or it'll be linked down below too. So really quickly here, I have a very special and unique and probably patented version of unboxing Tamiya kits that I'll show you here. And it basically allows me to kind of preserve the plastic covering for no reason, because I don't really do anything with the boxes other than just put them away where nobody can see them. But you know, what are you going to do? That's part of the weird little quirks of this hobby, if I can kind of channel my inner Doug DeMuro. As I was going to unbox this the second time, so when I was going to build it, I built it in late November. As mentioned, I actually purchased it and got it shipped here in June. So I started to unbox it and eventually figured out that I'd kind of stuffed just a bunch of motors into this box. With my wild one, I had gotten a Holmes Hobby that kind of matched the color motif of the pink car. I liked the Holmes Hobby motor, so I went and got one for this. And that was because I just assumed it came with a regular silver can motor. Now, over the course of several months, I've kind of had kits come and go and swapped out motors. And I think at some point I looked over and I go, you know, it'd be nice in this kit, be a torque tune motor. So I opened the box, put in the torque tune motor. Then I went to go build it. Like I said, a few months later in November, I start opening the box again. I open the kind of inner box in there, and there's a Tamiya GT Tune motor in there. I don't know where that came from. Okay. So now I had 3 motors for this car. I decided to stick with the Holmes Hobby one just because I liked the idea of kind of keeping that look going with the Blockhead Motors silver can on the Hotshot 2 has a similar kind of shape and end bell to the Holmes Hobby ones. Obviously with the Holmes Hobby one, keep it similar to that. And so I decided to put the torque tune back into my unused motor pile, and the GT motor I'll use in another build that I have coming up. So, helps to pay attention to the front of the box. Furthermore, pay attention to the front of the box because I've just built too many Tamiya kits where I just assumed it would just have the plastic bushings and maybe some of those brass bushings. So I ordered a kit from Fast Eddie that had even the thrust bearings and everything like that in it. Got it in, put it in the box. Again, when I went to go actually build it, I opened it up and there were 20 some odd bearings in there from Tamiya. Now, Fast Eddie ones are probably nicer because they're sealed, but I'll use those in another project coming up. Now I just have a collection of bearings, and I actually don't really purchase the bearing kits so much anymore for the Tamiya stuff because now I've accumulated enough and actually started stocking bearings mostly because Tamiya largely just uses the same bearings over and over again. So I had bearings, and if you look at the front of the box, it says bearings included, GT tuned motor included. So pay attention when you buy kits, otherwise you just end up with extra stuff. When you break into it, bag A is starting to build the front and rear diffs. The front and rear diffs themselves go together very similarly, so once you build one, you're gonna know how to build the next one. What I had not forgotten about building the Hotshot 2 is the kind of funky motor mount situation that they have, where basically to get the correct gear mesh, you're just putting in these little shim bars. It's a little finicky, a little difficult to get in, but eventually they'll do it. It helps to put just maybe a little dab of grease just so they kind of stick together and don't slide all over the place on you. Once you get into bag B, you are starting to do the suspension. You're going to start with the rear suspension. Then you'll go to the front, attach the front, and you're going to start working on the steering assembly, which is very interesting. Again, very similar to the Hotshot 2. You have these kind of metal plates that are screwed into the end of the plastic arms with these very small, size 1 Phillips head screwdriver. Again, I'm very happy that I purchased this GIS bit set. Really makes using these Tamiya screws much easier. It's not quite as good as hex, but still works great. It was at this point that the build kind of came to a halt, because when you're putting together the actual chassis and everything like that, you actually are painting the driver figure, the helmet, the face, whatever. I obviously had something special that I wanted to do for this, so this kind of put a little bit of a stop on the whole thing, just because I had to go and paint this all up before I put it all together. When you put the driver figure together for Tamiya, the helmet specifically, there's a huge hole in the back because you put a screw through, and even if you don't do that and you're just gonna kind of glue them together, you're still gonna have that hole in the back of the head. This go around, I filled it with some plastic epoxy and then some Tamiya putty over it to smooth over the whole thing. I am replicating the other helmets that I've done where they're silver and then a callback to the actual motif of the lightning bolt with colors reversed. All sounds very complicated, but it makes sense, other than the fact that it kind of looked like veins, but that's okay. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Now, I used a bunch of the Tamiya putty.
Yeah, that's right.
To smooth out the helmet. Makes it look nice. Put some primer on there, everything like that. You're in good shape. The face, I don't know why the face is giving me so much trouble this time. I did the eyes a couple times. Thankfully, because this is so low and the way it is, you don't actually see the eyes too well, so they look a little wonky. But other than that, pretty good. If you have any suggestions on better ways to do the eyes, I've tried a very fine paintbrush. I've tried the end of a toothpick. And honestly, that was it. But if you have any more suggestions, leave them down below. And while you're down there, please take a moment to like this video and please subscribe, because got a lot more builds coming up. I think they're interesting. Hopefully you'll find them interesting too. At this point, you've completed bag B with the steering and the suspension on both ends, and it's gonna have you attach them to the actual chassis itself. This is the part where the center propeller shaft goes in for the four-wheel drive. I forgot to put it in.
Idiot.
So I had to take the front off again and put it in, so don't forget to do that. You just kind of get caught up in the moment and you keep going. When you get into bag C, that's gonna be where you're gonna build your dampers. The kit itself comes with oil-filled CVA yellow dampers that you're gonna build yourself. I just kind of am partial to these racing blue aluminum dampers. I had a set of 90s handy, all four corners. However, I ended up using 70s on the front. I built it with a 90. I went back and used 70 millimeter on the front. So they're 90 millimeter on the back, 70 millimeter on the front, and that seems to give it just exactly the ride height performance, I'm assuming, that I want. One trick I've always used when building these kits is for putting the ball cups on your tie rods. I use a drill, chuck down on the actual tie rod itself, hold the ball cup, slowly go with the drill. You don't want to go too fast. You go too fast, it heats up, it'll melt the plastic, and then you'll basically just be stripping it out before you even get going. And then I flip it around, gently clamp down on that other ball cup, put the other end on, good to go. Got it on the first try too.
Sorry, nice try.
A little bit interesting thing, when I was starting to assemble what is essentially the kind of electronics compartment, you can see that there is a 1987 copyright stamp on there. So as I've said before, it leads me to believe that actually using the original molds, which is kind of cool. I've used the Yeah Racing lighting kit on a bunch of kits merely for the fact that it's like $8 or $9. It's super inexpensive. It gets the job done. It comes with 4 white lights and 2 red lights, I believe. And the reason I like to use it is not only because it's inexpensive, it does work, it gets the job done, but because it's inexpensive, I don't feel bad about cutting off the lights. So for the Hotshot 2, I'm only using 2 lights. Had no problem just cutting off the extra set of whites. For this one, I do just have 1 rear tail light. Didn't feel bad about cutting it off. And actually I keep them around so I can use them, wire up my own harnesses later. So they're really inexpensive, they work great. Okay, and as you assemble the top of it, you are going to be putting on the netting around the windows. Other 2 kits have that. It seriously makes me want to avoid kits with netting in the future because it is so finicky to put in, and how I actually do it is I kind of do it once, get it kind of set up into place, then I start getting the wiring into place where I need it to go. And that reminds me, on some forum a few months ago or maybe a few weeks ago, somebody asked, hey, how do you guys get your wiring so neat? And the best answer I could give was, I do it a couple times. So I'll kind of get everything roughly into place, even zip tied into place, and then I'll go back and kind of re-zip tie, clip the old zip ties off, and get it really neat. To me, zip ties are completely expendable. I get just huge bulk packs off of Amazon. It allows me just to rip through them without having to worry about, oh, I'm going to run out of these. I'm not going to run out of zip ties anytime soon. And I get a bunch of multicolored ones because if you've looked at any of my other videos, I have a weird obsession with color matching internals and externals and color schemes and stuff like that. So just keep a bunch of them around. It was actually mentioned in my Christmas wish list that I can put up here as well. The light buckets that I have for this car were actually off of some extra sprues that I had purchased or parts trees for the other Hotshots. I had purchased extra of them. So I was able to use these on this Super Shot build. Primed and painted them white, clear coated them, and then to get the kind of reflector inside, because the inside is still yellow, I actually have a chrome paint pen with a super thick tip that doesn't fit all the little kind of cracks inside of the light bucket. So I just had a piece of plastic and I just kind of kept dabbing the chrome paint pen until I had kind of a puddle, and then used a paintbrush to paint it all in. Again, these crazy little things that we all do for this stupid hobby that I love. Shouldn't denigrate it too much. That's how I did the inside of light buckets. Also had some extra of the lenses from a previous build, the Lexan lenses. I'm sure you could just cut circles or squares out of parts that were trimmed off of another body or something like that. You could use that. Ended up putting some Blockhead Motor stickers on those as well. Decals, come on, man. And then finish it off with a little vinyl pinstriping around here. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this in earlier videos before, but I picked up a roll or 2 of both black and chrome vinyl pinstriping kit from like a Pep Boys or O'Reilly's or something like that. And what it is actually 2 separate pieces of vinyl pinstriping on like a single strip, and it allows me to kind of have that little extra laying around. So this is actually a thinner version. I used the thicker part of the pinstriping vinyl to do this kind of front hood scoop because there actually isn't a decal for it. On the other Hotshot, they included a decal, I believe, for the front of the little fake hood scoop. And I hadn't noticed that they didn't include it in this kit. Otherwise, I would have just masked it off and painted it black when I painted the body. However, just use that decal. Works perfectly, trim it up into the exact shape that I wanted. I should mention that, again, because these are aftermarket dampers from Yeah Racing, have to do a little bit of reworking with them. Yeah Racing dampers include a lot of ball ends, basically, and ways that you can attach them. Again, as you kind of hang around this hobby long enough, you tend to accumulate extra parts. I started buying like big 3mm screw kits, both button head and flathead and cap head. I had to use slightly longer button head screws on the top of the rears, and then on the bottom here, when you actually put together the suspension arm, it's hard to explain. I'll do the best to show a picture here, but you have this little metal bracket, a screw goes through, and then you're gonna thread on a ball end to that. The one that's supplied in the kit itself is a little too small for the hole on the damper from Yeah Racing, but Yeah Racing supplies a bunch of these extra ball ends, so I was able to just screw that on there, a little bit of Loctite, pop it on, perfect. Up top, I think it was a 16 millimeter screw that I had to use something a little bit longer than what was supplied with the kit because this stands off a little bit further. Ended up having one that was slightly too long, but as you can see, I ended up using them to mount the front headlights on here, so it kind of worked out perfectly. And on the other ones, I used slightly longer screws to mount the rear taillights. So again, keeping that theme across all three of these builds. The last thing you do when you're building the chassis itself is you're going to mount the wheels and the tires onto the wheels. I've mentioned this in other builds that I've done. You do have to sand the inside groove if you're going to glue these. If you glue them, they are just going to glue to the chrome plating on the plastic. It will peel off if you go and use it. But if you sand the inside nice and tight, that glue is not going to come off now. So let's get to the body painting itself. As I mentioned, kind of wanted to keep a theme going here, but I wanted to up the complexity a little bit while keeping it looking simple. So I have this lightning bolt. The way I do that is cover the whole thing in liquid mask and then draw that lightning bolt on there, both on the wing, so it looks like it continues all one piece throughout the whole top of the body. And then go in and you're going to take an X-Acto knife on both sides of that line. So you're just going to make a very narrow, leave a very narrow cut. I'm going to back it lightly in white with an airbrush and then lightly in blue, and it kind of gives this glowing effect to it rather than just having it look like there's just a white line traveling down the body. And then the fluorescent pink from Tamiya over the whole thing, backed in white. I'm not going to back it in black because I think even though I've backed it well with the white, and I could even back it with silver and then gunmetal, I don't want to back it in gunmetal and risk kind of dulling or dimming any part of this fluorescent pink because it looks great. Another little kind of touch that I did is as the lightning bolt goes around and wraps around the body, all of the decals where it overlaps the lightning bolt, I actually trimmed around it so it looks like the lightning bolt's actually cutting through the decals. Just a little bit of a stylistic touch, shall we say. Lights that went on the roof, had to drill some holes in here into this aluminum roof myself. That doesn't come there. There's actually no kind of mounting for lights whatsoever on this kit. And then the back, there's a hole that's already in the shock tower. So I decided, let's just have it look like it's coming through that hole. So the original taillight bucket is there. It's painted black with the chrome inside. And then it's actually double-sided tape just to the inside of that shock mount. Oh, one thing you might notice is I didn't use the huge front bumper. I don't know why, I'm just not a fan of those bumpers that go all the way across. I can understand why people love them. Like, it's very unique to a lot of the Tamiya kits, but I do pick up these just aluminum, inexpensive aluminum bumpers off of, I think these are off of eBay, or maybe I've used some other Chinese site before, but I used one on the Wild one. I used one on the Hotshot 2. Again, just a little stylistic change that I did. Really enjoyed this build. I think it's gonna be a little bit before I do one with netting though. I don't wanna deal with it again. I think I'm gonna take it running a little bit. It's not too terrible outside right now. So we'll finish up this video with a little bit of run footage. But until then, please like down below, please subscribe, and we'll talk RC again later. Thank you. I like that they work great like that. No, it's a stupid line.